Morning. Everyone says fear sells. Well, I think we should be afraid of the weather. And there's not much we can't do to mitigate it. All we gotta do sounds easy. It's not 1, 2, 3, but it certainly can happen. We can change our technology. I read 130 million people are suffering from heat that's going to be like 120 degrees. They're closing schools in Texas and Louisiana as we speak. What happens to the kids? What happens to the kids in their learning? First, they suffered through COVID. Now, they're trying to get back to school, and all of a sudden, the heat's getting to them. We don't have heat pumps, don't have efficient air conditioning. Kids certainly can't survive. And what happens to those children who rely on the schools for meals? I understand from my friends in Pennsylvania and New Jersey who run food pantries. It's increasing. More and more folks are going to food pantries. So food insecurity is very real. Yeah, that with heat, and you got real problems. We must change the technology. We've gone to 23% renewable energy. We're now anticipating making steel and driving that steel manufacturing with wind power and solar power. And the interesting thing is the decommissioned coal mines have the generative power to hook up to renewables and make renewables a way of life. How fast can we do this? There are Fed funds available for infrastructure, and I hope that every state in the union is looking at that infrastructure bonanza and creating jobs that they're going to pay for. Because here in New York City, something like 147,000 people who work in the restaurant industry, they're not getting paid. And they're owed back wages to the tune of almost $200 million. That's a lot of money for people. Nobody should be working for free, not while the corporations are making more profits than ever before. Sure, there were supply chain problems, but there's no supply chain problem when you're working in a restaurant in your local city. There's no excuse not to pay help. There's no excuse to pay delivery people for help either. Where is the accountability on the corporate level? Everyone talks about migrants, the border, the economy. Well, what are you doing to increase the economic stability of the people in your state? One of the things you can do is you can insist upon paying folks a legal wage so that they're not starving, so that they don't have to work 3 jobs and still not survive and wind up homeless. There's something wrong with America, and what it is a lack of corporate accountability. We've pinpointed it. It's methane and carbon gases. $1 trillion still goes to the fossil fuel industry. It would be a good idea to start, if not taking them away entirely, certainly to remove them. They're making record profits off of us. Let's remove it and give the money to innovative corporations so that they can use the money for safe fusion technology, hydrogen technology, nuclear power plants that are fourth generation. And I'm still harping on thorium because nobody has really told me why we really can't use it. Seems to me it's a good idea whose time has come. And not only that, all the spent uranium and plutonium can be used in those breeder reactors, and we don't have to worry about their waste anymore either. The PFAS chemicals, the forever chemicals, they're in probably all of our waters, along with the microplastics. It's going to take innovation to figure out how do we remove these particles from our water so that our kids grow up without the toxicity that we had. When you think, why is there so much diabetes and cancer in the world? It's easy. It's our diet. We can switch from king corn as a biofuel and go to canola. Doesn't compete with any other substance, and we're not increasing the sugar in our diets. Too many of us have a propensity for diabetes. And diabetes is just not high sugar. It affects your heart. It affects your eyes with macular degeneration. It's a systemic disease that really none of us can afford to have. And we don't need it. We can change the technology. I've said before, and I'll say it again, I'd like to see Biden go on a War Production Act. I don't want to see these levels of heat and cyclones and flooding and fires another year, because we don't know what next year is going to bring, except we know it could be hotter. I myself can't live when it's really hot. I got to stay inside. There's not enough water for me to drink. And that's another resource we've got to be mindful of. So I think there's a lot for us, if not to fear, at least to ponder upon and say, what is my state doing to help me survive? What are my future leaders telling me they're going to do for me so my life is better and more profitable and healthier? That's what our leaders should be talking about, not things that don't affect us. The war in Ukraine is really a war that will save most of us from worrying about what Putin is going to do next. And when we think about Putin, we gotta wonder, did he murder Prigozhin or not? Evidently, that plane has been flying for 20 years and it never had mechanical failure. Now, Prigozhin is reportedly on it, and the plane crashes not far from St. Petersburg. That's a real surprise. But I wouldn't count on Prigozhin being dead until it's verified by outside forces other than Putin. Did Putin want him dead? He may have. Again, I'd like it verified. One thing I do know, science never stops. Great Britain wants to be part of the EU's scientific collaboration studies. We've had treaties with China where we're all involved in scientific exchanges. Science needs to be on a footing where everyone can look at your data analyze the data, make sure it's reproducible, and give it to the world. One thing we need is early detection of pandemics. And if somebody's come up with a good idea to power our world or make our manufacturing processes cleaner, by golly, we should know about it. And the same goes for regulations. EU's got good regulations for misinformation for the major social media platforms. Let them use it here as well. I'm hearing that schools want to use generative AI and ChatGPT. Unless you know that you've got a controlled methodology to understand those systems, I'd be cautious. So I'd say go cautiously on that GPT, because you don't know what you're going to get. Sometimes, if not always, it's garbage in and garbage out. You can't really use it exclusively without fact checked. So, my message is change the technology, change the major technologies that make our life easier and livable. And on these new technologies for generative AI and ChatGPT, let's get that regulation in place sooner rather than later. It's bad enough corporations see our data, understand our data, and use it, not always for our own good. In fact, most of the time, not for our own benefit. Do we want to go the next step and not be able to tell what's real or what's false? I don't think so, folks. I think we should go slow. So take care, everyone. It's a lot happening in our world, and it's happening all at once. Be curious. Ask that you get a livable, quality life. Demand it, and guess what? We'll get it. And then we don't have to be afraid. God bless.